The consumer is bleeding out before our eyes as we've seen this statistic absolutely skyrocket in a short period of time. And the president has proposed a solution for all of this. But I'm here to tell you that that is not going to help. So today we're going to dive into everything, including the student loan delinquencies that we've been seeing and that Elizabeth Warren has actually hinted at for quite some time. So let's dive in to these student loan delinquencies. We've seen 13% of student loans transition to delinquencies in this past quarter, literally the highest share on record. These transitions are into a serious delinquency spiked, and it's been the highest level since 2003. Now these delinquencies skyrocketed in Q4. And individuals age 50 and over sounds serious delinquencies. I mean, look at this. How are you still having student loans that you are paying off in your 50s? Furthermore, 14% of borrowers aged from 40 to 49 and 8% 18 to 29 have transitioned into serious delinquencies. So these people are literally in debt for their entire lives just because they went to college. But Trump and the admin is launching a new student loan repayment plan in the coming months. So let's dive into what that payment plan is and in my opinion, will it solve it? Now, his new student loan plan is a debt trap. That's what this group says, right? So this repayment assistance plan, or RAP, is being created under the big, beautiful bill, which will be signed into law, or which was signed into law in July. So under this bill, the income-based repayment plan would be preserved for current borrowers, would have a choice to enroll in RAP. So what is this RAP and how it works, right? It's an income-driven repayment plan. At the basic levels, it's similar to other income-driven payment plans, and it uses a formula applied to the borrower's income, and it calculates the monthly payments for a 12-month period. But the interesting part of all of this is that these repayment plans pose for a bigger issue, right? Like if it's based off your income, hey, you know what? My income goes up by 3% next year. Well, my repayment is going to go up by 3% then the following year. So your lifestyle is never going to change, although you potentially could increase. And as inflation, and as we know, wages are not growing quite as quick as inflation and all of the other costs that we have globally. So as these costs go up and as these repayment plans now go up and your then salary barely goes up, how are you supposed to live and afford all of this? So there needs to be greater growth in the overall economy where your income is going to need to outpace inflation. And right now, to be honest, that is not happening. So the consumer is in a very, very tough position as it stands. Now, let's keep diving into all of this before we dive into more about the consumer. And then after a fixed term, if the borrower hasn't paid off their loans in full, they would be entitled to student loan forgiveness. Now, I have my opinions about student loan forgiveness, and I also think it is a little bit of predatory for these colleges to offer such giant loans to people, especially when you're 18 years old and you have no idea what the hell you're going to do. But let's get back into the point at hand, what we are seeing, right? Because this student loan forgiveness, for all accounts, is looking at, hey, you know what? Who is the number one issuer of student loans? Right? It's the U.S. government. What are we seeing here? This U.S. debt skyrocket and absolutely explode. We're sitting at over $37 trillion. Look, the Doge did a great job saving over $500 million, but, or half a trillion dollars, excuse me. But when we get student loans or new national debt at 37 trillion, the debt per taxpayer keeps increasing. I mean, I'm going to keep showing you guys this as these things keep going through. But it's interesting because as the similarities end with the U.S., with the RAP, right? Higher monthly payments then save The RAP uses a complex tiered repayment formula, and that is counted towards a borrower's monthly payment plan. Additional income for the borrower is up to $100,000. Other existing IDRs plans used to use fixed formula in RAP. It's not indexed to inflation. Look at that. The RAP formula is not indexed to inflation, unlike the current income-driven factors, right? Right? So as inflation goes up, these repayments are not going to change. So as we've seen delinquencies, look at this. I mean, like a parabolic chart like this, you are not supposed to see. And so what else do we also see increasing as well? We see the U.S. unemployment rate for youth graduates ages 20 to 24 at 8.1%. That means if you just graduated college, right, you're going to be looking for a job. Allegedly, you're cheap labor. You should be able to find a job fairly early, right? Right? I mean, it's risen by 2 percentage points over the last 19 months. That is astronomical to see a 2% increase in unemployment against recent graduates. And it matches levels seen during 2008. And it's far above the levels we've seen in 2001. So, of course, outside of, the cerveza sickness that we saw not too long ago, this is the highest level since a recession. 16 to 24, 9.9% in the last 3 months. April 2023, the jobless rate. Young Americans just can't find jobs. And then on top of that, nearly 1 in every 2 young adults, is living at home with their parents. The highest rate since the Great Depression. So the consumer is actively struggling. The youth cannot find jobs. And so in an economy where we have the need to get more skilled workers, right? This is the whole thing with AI. We're seeing a boom, but we're not seeing the job creation that we maybe once thought we would see, at least initially under President Trump. So we've got now the youth unable to find jobs, the youth now living at home, and now we're seeing the potential of what we can potentially see in hyperinflationary aspects. And then everybody, the rich are still going to get richer. NVIDIA and AMD, they saw China potentially raising interest rates here, right? Or China trade deal, potentially happen. So they saw this trade deal happen. They all are getting into these, giant, they see this trade deal going, and NVIDIA and AMD, they all just absolutely just FOMO in. So as the consumer is getting crushed, and there's literally a student loan debt crisis with all of this, the rich are getting richer, and the gap in between are really hurting, right? So I think that we need to continue to be watching this, as the student loan Americans own 1.79 or 78, in federal and private student loans combined. Federal student loans, the largest issuer of student loans, is 1.66 trillion. 16% of American adults still have undergrad student loan debts, and 11.3 student loan debts were in delinquent. I mean, do the math here, folks. That is astronomical. So 42.7 million borrowers are still out there trying to pay all this, all of which, while we're sitting here looking at the Fed having an 86.5% chance to cut interest rates. So what is that going to do? We already saw it with NVIDIA and AMD, these trade deals going on. That's going to make this shoot up rapidly, right? And all of while the Dixie, the dollar, it's still showing somewhat of weakness, right? We are still sitting at 98.5 or 98.6, And year to date, the dollar is down 9%. I mean, when Trump came in, there was so much hope for all of this. But as we're seeing the Dixie continue to struggle in this time, it makes you think, right? What are the potentials that we've got going on here? Why are we seeing all of this struggle here? So we got to keep a close eye on the Dixie, just of how it's correlated with the actual market here, because we just recently had market open. So today we've got basically a flat day to start with all of this, even though we have one of the Mag 7 shooting up, right? NVIDIA shooting up. So it's interesting as we see the market play its role with all of this, right? It's something that we should keep a very, very close eye on, and I will be monitoring closely as we're seeing the consumer absolutely bleeding out. We got McLovin and some others in the chat. Make sure you guys are smoking that like and hitting that subscribe button so you could join McLovin in the chat, because we've got a lot of things to cover here, especially with the rapidly changing environment that we've got going on. So tell a friend to tell a friend, hit that subscribe button, and I will catch you guys. Help me get to 300. I'm almost there. I think I'm about 17, 18 away. So help me get there, guys. I know we're going to have more than that watching this one. So help me get to 300 by the end of the day, and I'll catch you guys all at the next one.